Happy Thursday. It's 1 o'clock. Actually, it's 1:02. I'm 2 minutes late. Sorry about that. But anyway, happy Thursday. As you can see by the light coming through the window, it's another beautiful day in the neighborhood here. We're going to touch the 80s again one more time before we fall off the cliff and go back into the high 40s and low 50s. So for all of you in sunny places, just be thankful that you have that sun anyway. Well, welcome to another Thursday Ask Me Anything. I am super excited to talk about yesterday's news, which was super fun. And yesterday's news was exceptional. Exceptional. A lot of folks don't think it's exceptional because guess what? The Fed did this. The prime rate, Fed adjust federal funds rate again, and the coffee index went up. So let me make this just a little bit bigger, right? So here you go. You have it. Now the Wall Street Journal prime rate is now at 8.25. And I've been getting lots of conversations and questions about, hey, what does this do for my HELOC? What does this do for my whole world and the credit capacity? And so I just wanted to talk about that today because I think it's a really common theme. But in the meantime, while I'm talking about HELOCs and adjustable rate mortgages, if you have a question, drop it in the chat. Drop your questions in the chat. They will pop up on my screen and we'll answer them. So I'm just going to invite people really quick. Questions here. So what does this mean? So prime rate is tied to almost every single HELOC, home equity line of credit out there. It's also tied to your credit cards. So for those of you that have credit cards, for those of you that have home equity lines of credit, your effective interest rate just went up another 0.25%. So I actually had a client yesterday say, hey, I've got an ARM, let's jump into it. So we actually had to take a look at what makes up the effective rate. So I wanted to walk through that with everybody because it's really important to know the pieces of your mortgage, right? So HELOCs are adjustable rate mortgages. Adjustable rate mortgages are obviously adjustable rate mortgages. So this is how it's made up, right? You have over here an index plus the lender's margin right here gives you the effective interest rate, right? So those are the three key components, right? So your index, whether you're tied to prime rate, the coffee rate, the LIBOR rate, the MTA, the monthly treasury, right? So all of those are different monetary indexes that we watch go up, down, left, right, whatever. So that's what the note is based on, right? So let's talk about HELOCs. HELOCs are based on prime rate. Prime rate went from 8% to 8.25, right? So you're going to see a 0.25% increase. So we take the index, we add the margin, and then that turns into your effective rate. So I just threw it in here really quick. Here's an example of a HELOC, right? You have prime rate is now 8.25. Right? Say in your particular situation, the margin is the lender's margin, and it is how they price the mortgage. So based on credit score, based on type of loan it is, based on how long the fixed period is, will dictate a margin. So let's just say, for example's sake, this particular HELOC has a margin of 2.5, right? So the effective rate of now this HELOC is now 10.75. Right? 10.75. Now here's where it gets really interesting. So I want to bring my other screen back up and bring up my calculator. So if you went out there and got, let's call it $100,000 HELOC. You bought your house 2-3 years ago when prime was down there really low. And let's just say your effective interest rate was 6%, 0.06, right? So HELOCs have what's called a simple interest formula. So you take your effective rate, you multiply it by the balance outstanding, and then divide by 12. That becomes your mortgage payment, right? So $500. So 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when you pulled out this HELOC, that $100,000 was only costing you $500 a month because it's simple interest. You're not paying any principal whatsoever on that thing. So now, fast forward, effective rate today is 10.75, and let's go look at that same $100,000 HELOC times 10.5%, right? Divide by 12. Right? So that same HELOC of $100,000 is now today going to cost you $895 a month. So this is why a lot of folks, they started getting HELOCs a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, because their interest rates were low and they didn't want to disturb that first mortgage. Now, all of a sudden, we have folks, and I'm getting calls from folks saying, hey, I've got a $300,000 first mortgage, but I've got a $150,000 second mortgage. My first mortgage is still at 3%, but my second mortgage is now at 10, 11, 12%. And when we start blending the rates together, it makes sense for them to refinance and get out of that HELOC situation where you're only paying interest only, and you're also subject to future rate increases, which brings me to point number 2, and what I'm super excited about with regard to yesterday's meeting. So yesterday's meeting, yes, the interest rates went up. However, wait, there's more. The cool part about it is Chairman Powell said, hey, we may have gotten to a point where we just need to pump the brakes, pump the brakes, and just see how this exponential increase in rates is going to impact the economy. So that is very good. What they didn't say is when we get to the next FOMC meeting, we're going to raise interest rates. So what that's forecasting, what I read into that, is that the Fed thinks that they have done enough at this point that they're just going to let it play out for a little bit and see what happens. The mortgage-backed securities market really liked it yesterday. They closed up. They started up. They started off on the top side on a good note today, but they've given up their ground. So the market's still trying to weigh this in. But long story short, I'm hopeful that this is us turning the proverbial corner and finding that plateau of high interest rates going forward. So time will be the teller, but I see this as a good omen and a good sign. So just as those interest rates go up, right? We're now at 8.25 on prime. If we get into an economic downturn and the Federal Reserve wants to lower interest rates to stimulate the economy, they absolutely can. And then that whole function of an increasing payment gets inverted and it starts to decrease your payment. So HELOCs, they do have risk, they do have reward, but if you're looking at the potential of refinancing because that home equity line of credit has exponentially grown as far as an effective interest rate is concerned, let me know. I could totally help you with it. I don't just carte blanche say, oh yeah, you have a HELOC, let's get you refinanced. We're going to look at it side by side. Hey, if you refinance today into a new first mortgage, here's what it looks like versus what you're paying right now. Does it make sense? And we just go down that journey together. So if that's interesting to you, let me know, and I'd be happy to hook you up. And we do have a question that I'm going to jump into once I get out of the banner setting here. Yes, this is okay. Let's talk about this. Can you explain what's going on with the higher credit score borrowers paying a higher rate than some of those with a lesser credit score, right? Mortgages, as I alluded to earlier when I talked about the margin in a HELOC or an adjustable rate mortgage, mortgages are based off of risk, right? One risk factor that we price a loan on is your credit score, right? Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHFA came out earlier this year. This is way back at the end of February, early March, and said, hey, y'all, we're going to change our requirements when it comes to loan level pricing adjustments for credit scores. So pre this change was if you had a 741 or higher, you had obtained the highest rating with regard to credit that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac looked at. Kudos to you. Yay, you got a good credit score. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac's not going to touch you. You're not going to get negatively impacted. That's awesome, right? They moved that bar up. They moved that bar up to 781, right? So they moved the cheese. And where you're seeing all these doomsday and Chicken Little headlines coming out is they moved that bar up, and the lower credit scores, because a Fannie Freddie loan, conventional loan, will go down to a 620 credit score. So the lower end of the totem pole, they lowered the loan level pricing adjustments, right? So if you had a 620 to a 660, you got less of an adjustment, right? You still get a negative mark on the old rates, but it's not as bad as it was, right? So this is where you're seeing all the headlines that say, "Oh, the high credit score borrowers are subsidizing the low credit score borrowers," blah 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 blah. I'll tell you one thing that I've noticed here in the last year and a half is that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have very much tightened up their guidelines and their automated underwriting approvals for anybody below a 680, right? If we go, I don't have the data, but I would venture a guess if we went and looked at the amount of loans that Fannie Mae did and Freddie Mac did below a 680 in the last year and a half, it would be substantially, markedly lower than 21, 20, and 19 because they changed their algorithm and how they underwrite the loans. So though it sounds like it's better for the low credit score borrowers and worse for the high credit score borrowers, you know, that is a fact. It did get better for low credit score. It got more punitive for higher credit score. If you want to spin it that, oh, it's subsidizing the lower credit scores, I can tell you right now, those lower credit scores have a high probability of not even going Fannie Freddie. They've actually been pivoted over to an FHA loan. So yes, Fannie and Freddie increased the loan level pricing adjustments if you have over a 741, and it's been noted. Now, here's the thing. A lot of folks like, oh, it's just taking effect this month, blah, blah, blah. Lenders had to price this into their mortgages back at the end of March and beginning of April because it's any loan funded after May 1st, right? So if we originate a loan today, it's not going to close for 20 to 30 days, right? So if we originated a loan today on the 4th of May, it's not going to close until the 1st of June. So lenders had to back into this number and say, hey, we need to put these loan level pricing adjustments into play last month, if not March time. So it's already in your mortgages. It's already been there. This is old news. And it's sad that the news media is scaring folks. Here's the long story short. The long story short is if you don't have the cash to buy a house, you're going to have to get a mortgage, right? Mortgage rates are what mortgage rates are. Fannie Freddie set the rules for every lender out there as far as loan level pricing adjustments are concerned. So, as much as it sounds horrible, right? If you're not sitting on the $500,000, $700,000, $800,000 cash to go buy that house cash, then you just have to play the game. I can tell you the game of real estate is definitely long-term better than the small adjustment that the FHFA did. So it's been fun. I've had lots of conversations both with real estate agents as well as my clients about, oh my gosh, am I paying for low credit score borrowers? You're paying the cost of mortgage, right? So think about it this way. If for those of you that still have gas cars or diesel cars, right, you're going to go pay for gas. It's the cost of doing business. So build that into your budget and move forward with confidence and strength in the real estate market, because I believe fundamentally it's one of the strongest markets here that we have from a financial standpoint. So that was a great question, Jamie. I definitely applaud you for bringing that up because there's been lots of conversation about that. So there you have it. And adjustable rate mortgages, if you have one and you don't know what you're looking at, be happy to help you out there. And I guess the personal share today is that, for some of you, you may or may not know, but I have been on a path of sobriety for the last almost 9 years. And I bring that up because this weekend, Saturday, is my 9-year anniversary of sobriety. So I just want to go out there and say, past that event, the other side is amazing. So if you do find yourself out there struggling with any type of demons, whether it's alcohol, drugs, what have you, reach out. You're not alone. And I just want you to know that there's lots of folks that are going through life just like you are, and you are loved and you're not alone. And reach out for that help. You're going to be amazed how many hands reach back. So enjoy your guys' this week. I'm going to go enjoy the rest of the sun here today because, like I said, we're jumping off a cliff tomorrow from 80 degrees down to 51. So I'm going to go enjoy that sunshine this afternoon and look forward to seeing y'all next Thursday when we're doing it again. Ask me anything. Check you later.